Greetings from the Sakai Learning Management System. I'm Gwen Smith, and I've been working with the Sakai program to create quizzes and tests for my students in Spanish 1 and Spanish 2. And I've got a 4-part system here. This is step 1 of how to create a test or a quiz using Sakai. Here on the screen you see I'm at my workspace. I have 2 classes, Spanish Hybrid 1 and Spanish Hybrid 2, that I've been working with. I'm going to click over to Spanish Hybrid 2 to get us started on the process. To make a test or a quiz, the first step is you have to think, how do I want my students to be assessed? That requires a little bit of work outside of Sakai, a little bit of thinking or organizing your thoughts, because you have to think, I'm going to give them a quiz on the first lesson, a quiz on the second lesson, and then a chapter test. Now, what do I want in each of those quizzes? I've done a little bit of that thinking here on a Word document, and this is my suggestion for you. Think about how you're going to assess your students using online testing. For Chapter 5, I'm going to have 2 vocabulary quizzes, a grammar quiz, and then a chapter test. And inside each of those, I also want to think about what I want those quizzes to look like. First of all, I'm going to have fill in the blanks and multiple choices for each of the vocab quizzes. And in the grammar, I only need to create a bank of questions using the imperfect verb tenses. For the chapter test, I kind of recycle things. I have vocabulary, grammar, and culture that are going to be on this particular quiz or test. Now that I've thought this through, I also want to make sure I could easily access the question pools later on. That'll make more sense when you watch some of the other little videos that I've created. So I have to name them carefully. Since this is Spanish 2, everything I put into Sakai, I'm going to start by calling it Level 2. So let's switch back over to Sakai and go to tests and quizzes, and you'll see that I've got an awful lot of quizzes and tests in here, and each one is started off. I'm trying to be consistent, so I'm calling them Level 2. Here's a 2.1 quiz. That would be vocabulary. 2.2, that's another vocab, and 2, 3 are always grammar. So the 1s and 2s are vocabulary and the 3s are grammar. That's just my system. And then when I make the chapter test, they look a little different. So the first thing I do is clear out anything that might be here. And I go to question pools, because you start with the bank of questions you wish to use. And Sakai then, if you put in a bank of questions, Sakai will randomly pull from that bank of questions when each child sits down to take their test. That way no child has exactly the same quiz or test as anyone else. So in question pools, you see I have some chapters 4, 5, and 6. Those actually come from Level 1, and I have shared them with myself here in case I want to use any of those old banks of vocabulary words when I'm doing review activities. And then anything that has the number 2 in front of it, that's stuff that I'm making for Level 2, Spanish 2. And here, you see I have the Chapter 5 test, and I've named this question pool. I'm going to show you how to do that, but let's go to the Chapter 2 question pools that I've already made, and you see that I have my 5.1 quiz, vocabulary, and the 2 vocabulary quiz. I have the 2 vocabulary quizzes and the grammar quiz. So let's go over to the question pools, and you will see that I have here my Level 2 Chapter 5 question pool already made. And underneath it I have already created a 5.1 vocabulary pool, a 5.2 vocabulary pool, and the grammar pool. All I have left to make for these subpools is the one for my chapter test. So how do you do that? You create a subpool by going over here to the right and clicking Add, and the name for my chapter test would be Level 2 Capítulo 5. I'm going to call it exam. I'm going to call it exam 5. Now I have my 4 question pools. Now let's go to vocabulary. This is where I'm going to work. Right now, I want to add some fill-ins. And I made that the same way. I added that. Now in my subpools, I need another subpool for multiple choice, but I'm going to show you how to do that in another video. Now in my fill-ins, I click that one, and I see that I don't have any questions, so I'm going to add some questions. Go over to Add a Question. In this screen, you see you get to select what type of question you wish to make. Whatever you pick, it will give you the instructions on how to create it so that Sakai can then use it. I'm going to make a fill in the blank. And here are the instructions. It says that if you put braces, curly braces, around the word that will be the blank, and inside the brace you put the answer itself, it'll show up on the student screen as a fill in the blank with a box, and they can type in the answer. I'm going to type one in and show you how complicated or easy this can be. I'm typing in Spanish, and I'm doing that for a reason, because I know some of you are doing math or science and you have special symbols that you need, just like I do. So my question will be curly brace. And I need an accented O to come next. So I'm going to click Show Text Editor, put my cursor back next to the letter I, and then use this special character box to get the O that I need. So a festival is a community celebration like Christmas, and then I need another accented letter, so I put my cursor where it needs to be, click the rich text editor, get the accented I. My sentence is finished. Where the word feria is, there will be a blank. The students will put in the answer. By the way, you see where it says answer point value, and I leave it at 0. That's because when we make the quiz, we can tell in the quiz making process how many points each thing is worth, and that will override any answer point values that we set here, so I just leave that at 0. If you have something that needs to be capitalized or needs to be lowercase, and that makes a difference to you, you can click case sensitive. It never really matters to me, so I don't leave it there. I don't mark those. If I had a picture, I could attach a picture. I can, if I want, put the correct answer here for them to see. Typically I don't. And under metadata, I can put what standard or objectives, benchmarks, any of those things would help me to analyze the data as the kids give me their responses. For this purpose, we're just going to leave those blank. Now I have one question in my question pool. I don't know about you, but that seems like an awful lot of work going back and forth with that rich text editor. So most of the time, I make my questions on Word and then copy and paste them into the boxes or drop them into the boxes. So let's add another question. I need it to be another fill in the blank. And now I'm going to toggle over to the document, and I'm going to steal one that I've already typed, and you see I have the curly brackets on it. I need to put a little more information on that one. Let me copy it, and you'll see that it'll drop right into Sakai. Boop. Hit save, and now I have 2 questions. And let me finish putting these in, and then I'll come back to you and show you what to do next. Difuntos. These get dropped in. I hit save. I have effectively created 7 questions. With this, I could make it 10, 15, however many I need. I intend this being a quiz for students to receive 5 of these questions when they take the quiz itself. So I'm going to be good with having 7 of them. And now I can return to 5.1 vocabulary. And this ends the first of my videos. It shows you that I've got a subpool, and that's how you make a question pool. If you watch the next video, I will show you how to make another question pool in a different format. Have fun with Sakai.